All right. I'm Emily.
I'm Chelsea.
Oh shit.
That is not who we are. Mm-mm.
And this is Mom Needs a Minute. Oh my gosh. All right.
Yeah.
Chelsea, why do you need a minute? Why do
Oh,
you need a minute this week?
oh man. Can I ponder? You tell me why you need one.
Because we're moving. We're just moving, period, end of fucking story. It's a nightmare.
Oh, I know. I know you're moving.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it's just.
No, I know.
Yeah. I am just really excited to have all of my stuff in one house and not in two houses because it's like I feel like I can unpack and resettle if I stop bringing more shit in, you know?
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm just we're just constantly bringing more things into like our new house. And I'm just I feel like I'm not getting anything done yet. And it's been like a week and I found my clothes yesterday. So
I feel like it takes a long, long time to even
Mhm.
unpack. And I mean, you guys it's like what? Is 20 minutes out of town? 30? I don't remember.
30. Yeah,
It
it's like
doesn't feel
30
like it
miles.
though, but
No. No, it's not that bad honestly, but yeah, it's like a 30-minute drive into town, which is totally fine.
that's the only reason why you need a minute.
Moving. Yeah, I could just sleep for 2 weeks because I have never like I'm so tired. Cuz I think that like when the other day when we were like, okay, we're moving, like last weekend, we like both of our adrenaline was just so high. We were like, all right, go, 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 go. And now that it's like, okay, our beds are here, and now our beds are here, and like they're made up, and everything is kind of like here for the most part. It's like now we can start settling down and like, okay, I can relax in my bed. And it's like, just now I just want to sleep.
Did you guys put your beds together yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Those are like first thing first. The dogs have done a great job moving because obviously they did, right? We have to yell a little bit louder for them when we like open the door. They don't come jumping on our door immediately the minute you close it.
Well, and they're like most of them are pretty hard of hearing. They're getting there. Jarvis for sure. Max, but
Yeah, Jarvis like deaf, fully deaf. Yeah, so you gotta go Max, Jarvis, 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 and then he'll come.
or hope that he just
Um,
follows Max in.
Pretty much, yeah. We're like kind of just banking on one or
Yeah.
the other. He just follows Max. But the cats have been a whole thing. It's fine.
Is it though?
They're just yeah. Well, okay. So, yeah. Monday Patrick spent 2 hours looking for Lola. And then as soon as I called him when I was done with work, he put me on speakerphone and all of a sudden she comes out of her hiding hole.
I swear she's just too lazy to do anything at this point.
She was hiding in Bentley's room. She was hiding under his dresser.
Is she hiding or is she just like chilling? You know?
I think she's hiding just because she doesn't know the house now. And so she doesn't have like a chill spot yet. So she's like in her little corner. Yeah.
You hear that? That would be BK on the back of our mirror. We have to put our mirror in the closet every night because he thinks it's funny to scratch it.
Alrighty, BK.
Yeah. Anyway,
Narc has just been more obnoxious than normal.
that's
Just,
possible?
yeah. Yeah. She's
Holy
just been
shit.
whinier than normal. I know. She's been whinier than normal. And then
Oh boy.
Myrtle's been a whole thing. So for those that don't know, Myrtle is what we call either bedroom cat or basement cat. And people forget that I have a third cat all the time because they never see her. And so moving has really bothered her.
She's also an orange cat. Orange cats, if anybody has one, understands that they're different,
Yeah.
right? I mean, clearly my orange one was just scratching the mirror, so.
Yeah. No, so she's just something else, but she does not like change. And so it took her 2 full days to come out from behind a mattress that we just have propped up against the wall.
At least you know she was in there, though.
Oh yeah, it was like our guest room mattress, so you could see like underneath it. And so we could like peek on her and make sure she was there and she was okay. But she finally came to sleep with us last night. Cause like, well, there were multiple times where I would like pick her up and like carry her up to my bed and like lay her in my bed just so she could like smell it and stuff. And then she would just bolt. So
It's funny how they like learn where all those things are, though. Even like when I moved Oliver in here into the apartment, it like I was scared he would hide for the rest of his life, and he didn't even hide at all, and he knew where the litter box was and all of that. It's just amazing how animals are.
honestly, that's what I was afraid of with like Myrtle because our house that we just moved out of was the only house she's ever lived in. And so her finding everything and like we always knew that she was like really skittish and really
Anxious.
freaky about everything, anxious, yeah, about
She's
everything.
very anxious. She's like our sassy in a way.
Yeah. And so we were really kind of nervous about how she would do with moving, which is why we didn't wash our sheets. We like carried her up and down the stairs a couple times so she could find our bed, like all of that just to make her more comfortable with like the move without her losing her fucking mind and like I don't know, having a heart attack and dying or something.
That's fair. That's fair. But I could have, I mean, if Sassy made it here just fine and didn't die underneath the couch after a month of eating or not eating or drinking, I had faith in your
I had
cats.
faith in the other two. Myrtle is just the one that always makes me nervous.
Yeah, and she was the rough one too to catch and put in the kennel.
She Oh my god, driving with her out here was a freaking nightmare. I was trying to call Patrick with my like voice to text, so I would like push my button and it would be like voice whatever, voice command on and I'd be like call Patrick and it'd be like calling 047#83 and I was like no 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 because the cats were screaming so loud in my car that me saying call Patrick was being like overridden by their just screaming.
Oh god, I don't even know like what one of my cats would be. I mean, I'm going with BK, I think. BK would probably be the worst.
I really thought Lola was gonna be a nightmare, but she was actually like the best.
Yeah, because Bentley's the one that put her in the kennel. He was scared to do it, and I was like, "Your mom's fine. Just put her in there. She's fine."
Are you ready for a story though?
Yeah,
Heck yeah. Okay, so this was actually going to be our very first story. But our audio was absolute trash.
yeah. Trial and error, man.
All right. So are you ready for the boy in the box?
I am.
Okay. Do you remember much of this after I because this was the first one that I told you. So you have heard this story, but it was a long time ago. So do you remember any of it?
I don't even remember what I did yesterday. I barely remember my own age half the time, so we're good.
I do have to do the math for mine also. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. So, on February 25th, 1957, a man was out checking muskrat traps and discovered a box off Susquehanna Road. Susquehanna? I hope so. I hope it's Susquehanna Road in Philadelphia. When he looked at the box, he discovered the body of a young boy. However, he chose not to report it because of the fact that killing muskrats was illegal at the time, and he was afraid that if he went to the police about it, they would confiscate his traps.
Okay.
Honestly, it's insane to me. Like, your traps are more important than the body of a little boy in a box. But, the 50s, man, I don't know. So, a few days later, a LaSalle College student named Frederick Benoit went to the police saying he'd been driving down the road and saw a rabbit tuck under the bushes, and um, he knew there were animal traps in the area, so he pulled over to help this rabbit. And while he was doing that, he also discovered this box. So he had actually discovered it on the 24th, but was nervous to go to the police about it. He went and gave a confession to a priest who encouraged him to reach out and like tell um, officers what he had found. However, he was cautious about it and told them about the rabbit, mostly just so he didn't actually have to tell them why he was in the area. Shocker, there's no rabbit. I know. He had been in the area in order to spy on the young women at Good Shepherd School, which was a Catholic school for, quote, wayward girls, like the good old peeping Tom that he was. So Frederick Benoit was in the area to peek in these windows. So on February 26th, finally, Philadelphia PD opens a case to figure out like who this child is and like what the hell is going on, right? Because Frederick is obviously lying to them. And then like what happened. So the little boy's fingerprints were taken and evidence was collected, and the police were really really hopeful that they would be able to identify him very quickly and like put this whole thing to rest very quickly, right? However, every single lead that they got led nowhere. hmm So, once they began investigating, they found the box that he was found in. The box was from a bassinet that was sold at J.C. Penney's, lying on its side and opened at one end. When I had originally read this, I thought that it was like a really long box and it was open at the top, you know, like a pack and play almost. But it was actually open at like the short end.
I didn't even know JCPenney's was around that long.
Forever, man. I don't know. When they
When the hell
started,
did they open?
I don't know, a million years ago. But anyway, so the thing about this part that bothered me was that if the box was like long and like opened at the top like a pack and play or something. What? Did you figure out when it opened?
Yeah, okay, guess.
Mm, 35. I
Mm-mm.
have no more guesses.
They just had their birthday a few days ago. April 14th, 1902.
Enough.
Right? I was not expecting that. That's why I was just, yeah.
1902. That's 222 years old. Or 122 years old.
That's what Google says. Like I don't know how to make any of this up. It's literally right here. Founded. JC.
I believe you. I
Yeah,
just
they just had their
that
birthday. Happy late birthday, JC Penney's.
Mhm. Okay. So, when the police started investigating this little boy in this box, like I said, I thought that the box opened at the long way at the top, like a pack and play. But it was open on the one end, which is worse to me because like if it opens at the top long way, you could at least lay a little kid in it. Whereas if it's open on like the one skinny end, you have to like push a kid into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm like, so he's more than likely not even like,
He wasn't it doesn't sound like he was laid nicely into this box.
yeah.
It sounds like he was
Huh.
like shoved into this box from the short end or from the little end. And when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, okay, he was like laid down into it like a Christmas tree box or something." That opens from the top and you like put things like yeah, so then you could like lay him into it. Um so yeah, something about it opening to the side instead of the top just made it even sadder to me. But so the box was able then to be traced to a bassinet that J.C. Penney's had received, and they were able to trace this box to J.C. Penney, the bassinet, J.C. Penney, November 26, 1956. And then it was sold between December 3rd, 1956 and February 16th, 1957. So they were able to like really narrow down this box. But it was one of 12 in the shipment to a store in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. And then the other 11 bassinets were able to be found, but the 12th bassinet has never been located, which is interesting.
I mean, yes and no. If you think about it, like people get rid of that baby stuff like instantly, and some people just throw it in the trash or
Why would you throw it if there were only 12 of them and they can find 11 of them?
I'm trying here.
That's not what happened there at all. J.C. Penney, though, at the time didn't have any records of who had bought the bassinets because at the time they had a cash only policy. Um, the box had, however, been sent to the FBI for evaluation, but they were unable to get any viable prints or leads from it aside from where it was sold, which is kind of a real huge bummer because because like if you think about it now, if you bought something at J.C. Penney, they'd be able to track you down to your friggin' social security number in about 30
We
seconds.
also use cards now. Back then, they used cash and maybe checks.
Yeah, yeah, but like that's the worst part about it though. So, when the boy was found, he was wrapped in a blanket that was made of a cheap flannel with diamonds and boxes on it. Um, the blanket had recently been washed and then cut into two uneven pieces. It was sent to the Philadelphia Textile Institute, where it was determined to have been manufactured in either the Beacon Mills factory in Swanoa, North Carolina, or the Esmond Mills factory in Quebec. They have the store narrowed down. They have this blanket narrowed down. And the problem is there are thousands produced and shipped all over the world. And it was impossible to determine where the blanket had been sold because that could have helped narrow down. where the person may have lived or something. The worst part now is going to be the child and the information about the child. Are you ready?
So I have to be, right? Ah, shit. Okay, let's do this.
According to Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Joseph Spellman, um, the child was a boy between 4 to 6 years old. He was 41 inches tall and only 30 pounds, which is very small.
Yeah, that's super small.
With him being 30 pounds, it was decided that he had been severely malnourished. Um, he had a ton of scars, some of which were basic injury scars, like falling down, getting a scrape, or whatever. Um, but a fair amount of them were actual surgical scars.
I remember that, yeah.
He had an L shaped scar on his chin, a 1-inch surgical scar on the left side of his chest, a round, irregularly shaped scar on his left elbow, a quote, well healed scar on his groin that could have possibly indicated a hernia surgery, a scar on his left ankle that was described as a quote cut down incision, which is a scar typically seen when it comes to exposing veins for blood transfusions. So if he had had several other really intense surgeries, if he needed a blood transfusion, the scar on his ankle here um, wouldn't be terribly out of place. You know what I mean? So, like, this scar was like it seemed like a secondary scar compared to the surgeries that he was having. It was just like we have to do this to make this actual surgery successful. Um, so it is not terribly like outside of the realm of possibility that he had had a blood transfusion
Yeah.
at some point in time. He was circumcised, but he had no marks from vaccinations. And at this time, they had the like really big vaccinations that left like the big circle punch in your shoulder. It wasn't. It was yeah. It was back when they had that like the big circle punch that they left in your shoulder versus like just the needle and stuff that we have now that leaves really no mark. So he had no so this boy had no signs of um the vaccinations. Um which made detectives think that he may have not been yet enrolled in school. So if he was between 4 and 6, they were now if he was not enrolled in school, they were leaning closer to the 4 or 5 side of that age range. They also thought that he had a chronic eye problem because during his autopsy, when his left eye was exposed to UV light, it shined bright blue, which apparently indicates recent exposure to the diagnostic dyes that they use in treatment of certain chronic eye diseases, or to help like when they have to like dilate your eye and do the like tests and stuff on it. So his left eye had been recently exposed to like those dyes that they would need to do those tests and stuff. So this little dude had been through it with all these surgeries. He was clearly malnourished. Was he was just covered in bruises. He had scars everywhere. He has now like eye problems. Like little dude's been through it. Which overall is just really the worst part about this is because he's so little. So, this little guy had been described to have blue eyes, a fair complexion, medium blonde to light brown hair. He did appear to be freshly cleaned and groomed. His fingernails and toenails were freshly cut. He had a fresh, crudely done haircut, with his hair being cut very short in some places and basically shaved off in others. And that was either done right before death or very shortly after.
That's just so weird.
There were also chunks of his hair found in the box with him still.
Why?
I know, which gives me like baby Cazalia and Hinterkaifeck vibes.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, right? It's horrific, honestly. I know. He was naked and horribly bruised, with bruises covering his face, his head, his like everything. He was just covered in bruises.
I hate it.
His right palm and the bottom of both of his feet were wrinkled, indicating that they had been submerged in water for an extended amount of time shortly before or right after his death. Um, it was also determined that he hadn't eaten for at least 2 to 3 hours before he had died. So he hasn't eaten anything for a few hours, but he is clearly, because of the one palm and both of his feet, he has been submerged in water.
It's just weird how that's the only thing that can like show that.
Yeah, I wonder, I wonder if there was water in his lungs. I don't know that I found that. I don't remember if I found that. If there was water in his lungs, because that might have,
Yeah.
if his like one palm and both of his feet, maybe he had his hand down, he was like kind of folded over almost. I wonder if I did find that, we'll learn about it together, but I wonder. So he hadn't eaten for at least 2 to 3 hours. However, there was a dark residue in his esophagus that indicated that he may have vomited immediately before his death. So, yeah, since it was February in Philadelphia and it's obviously very, very cold, um, due to the cold weather, it was determined that he had either been there for between 2 days and 3 weeks. Because
Wow.
decomp is frozen when it's that cold, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes it can be kind of hard to tell.
It preserves the body a little bit more.
Yeah, so it can be kind of hard to tell. So
Yeah.
between 2 days and 3 weeks, which is still honestly pretty close, especially for the 50s. So, his cause of death was attributed to blunt force trauma from multiple blows to his head. But Spellman, the medical examiner, could not rule out damage by, quote, pressure, leading investigators to believe that his head had been squeezed during his final haircut.
How do you squeeze someone's head that hard?
I don't know. Like, honestly, I don't know. I would think that, like, you'd get them up under your shoulder and, like, into your elbow and, like, and you're squeezing. And their little noggins are still pretty malleable at 4 to 6 years old. Right? So if you're putting a lot of pressure on them, and then because it did say that
Yeah, you
he had
gotta.
hair that was like cut really short, some that was down to the scalp, and it was just extremely uneven, but it was still very freshly done. And they couldn't determine whether the haircut was given prior to or shortly after his death. So they were like theorizing that maybe he had been squeezed while given this haircut, and the squeezing is what had caused his death. Because it was blunt force trauma to his head, or it was trauma to his head that caused his death, according to the medical examiner. Poor baby.
Yeah, I got nothing. I don't know.
So the scene was combed over by more than 270 officers. These officers found a tan child scarf and a yellow size 4 shirt, both of which would have been the size that the child would have worn. A men's white handkerchief with the letter G in the corner of it, and a pair of size 1 black children's shoes that the medical examiner determined to be too large for the child, and a blue men's corduroy hat was only 17 feet away from the box. So the hat was able to be traced to the Robbins Eagle Hat and Cap Company in Philly, and it was also one of 12, made from corduroy remnants, and was produced before May of 1956. Now they have a 1 in 12 bassinet and a 1 in 12 hat, and they can't pin it down. They can't pin it down.
Sketchy.
So they were able to get in touch with the owner of the company, who said that the hat had been made without a leather strap. But a few months later, the man that had purchased it brought it back in to have the strap sewn onto it. And she said that while while there were no records available on his name or anything about the purchaser, she remembered that he was a blonde white man in his late 20s, and he wore, quote, working clothes, had no accent, and he was alone. So, yeah, so they're like, feels like they're getting awfully close, but without having more records from the stores. They're just not quite there, unfortunately. The Philadelphia Inquirer, their newspaper, printed more than 400,000 flyers with his face and the information, and sent these out everywhere, including mailing it with every gas bill that was sent out in Philadelphia. They also got a bunch of tips, but they all led nowhere. So in July, 5 months after this poor baby was found, he was buried in a potter's field with a stone that said, quote, Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy. And it is the most heartbreaking photo. Hold on, let me find it for you, because it is the most heartbreaking thing that you've seen.
At least he has a stone, though. There's some people who only get that like little plaque. But yeah, it's definitely sad.
Yeah. So this happened in 1956. In 1998, he was exhumed to try and use new technology to get just maybe some DNA from him. And they were able to get DNA from a tooth.
It's always the teeth, man.
So then he was reburied in Ivy Hill Cemetery with a stone that said, quote, America's unknown child. So then in March of 2016, 60 years after they found this little boy, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released a full facial reconstruction in an effort to try to figure out his identity. And then in 2019, he was exhumed again to try and extract more DNA with even better technology.
In order to find his identity, we have to have something to compare it to.
So at this point, do you remember how Golden State Killer got caught? With familial DNA through like 23andMe or
Yeah.
Ancestry or something?
Yeah.
So they're hoping in 2019 here that exhuming him and getting more DNA, they're hoping that something just pops up. That something even, like, gets them in the right direction. And so this poor kid has been exhumed 3 times now, and he has been fucking through it after being murdered and all that, right? Because you would think after like 60, 65 years, you should just be able to be laid to rest. I understand why they kept doing it because they really felt a need to give this poor child a name. But good night. That's a lot.
I mean, I would understand it better if it was like a consecutive, like it was a reoccurring situation in that area or elsewhere. You know what I mean? Maybe this was like a situation that like maybe like wasn't purposeful,
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
and they just didn't know what to do because they panicked, which obviously still isn't a good excuse. But because if even then, I feel like someone's gonna be like searching for their child if that child went missing.
You would think, right? Especially if the Philadelphia Inquirer is posting 400,000 flyers and they're mailing them out with every single water bill in the city.
Exactly. But then again,
You would think somebody would come forward, but nobody did. Nobody did.
and I guess if that was happening, like a neighbor or a family member or something like that should also notice it. So, yeah, this could have been like a basement kid.
Okay, I do have theories about what happened to him. Um, so first off, Frederick Benoit, the guy that found him and actually reported it, right? Not the first guy. Was questioned, took a polygraph and passed, and he was ruled out like immediately. Okay, and so like a lot of times they say with like polygraphs, or like it's easy to trick a polygraph and whatever, right? Um, but it's what I don't take a lot of stock. I don't hold a lot of stock in polygraph tests personally, but he passed and he got ruled out. And I don't think that he had anything to do with it, especially if he is like sitting there saying, I only I only found this kid because I was trying to peek in some Catholic girls' windows or something like that. So I don't think that he if he's willing to like say that stuff, I don't think that he had.
Exactly. There's no way because
No, but they always like look at the guy that like the person that found them, the person that like initially reported. They always look at them just in case,
well, it's like
right?
they all like yeah, in like cases when women go missing or something, they always look at the
Mhm.
boyfriend, husband,
Yep.
whatever. Yeah,
The husband did it. Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yep. And so I don't think uh Freddie here was the actual person that did it. I don't think he had anything to do with it. However, I do understand why they did question him and why they did put him through a polygraph and stuff like that.
He was the
So,
only thing they had.
yeah, basically. He was immediately ruled out. So then one theory emerged in 1960, 3 years after this poor baby was found. Remington Bristow, an employee of the medical examiner's office, and he had worked on the case until his death in the 90s. So this man was like dedicated to figuring out the fuck happened. Um he he said that he had contacted a new okay, this man who worked in the medical examiner's office contacted a New Jersey psychic named Florence Sternfield Florence, who reportedly had never been to the area, led Bristow in the direction of a nearby foster home. The home was only a mile and a half away from where the boy was found, and Arthur Nicoletti was the man in charge.
I don't like his name, so Art.
Arthur Nicoletti, being in charge of running this foster home, he is, regardless of whether he did this or not, he's a big shitbag, okay? He can go fuck himself. So Arthur here married his wife, Catherine, who had a 20-year-old daughter, Anna Marie, from a previous relationship. Anna Marie had been considered mentally ill and was unable to like live on her own. And she needed to have like constant supervision, right? So she at 20 years old or whatever was living with her mother and Arthur in this foster home. She wasn't necessarily one of the foster kids, but she was living in this home because he was like running it, right?
Yeah.
So before the discovery of this poor baby, Anna had 4 kids out of wedlock, and since it was the 50s, being unwed was an absolute no-no, right? Being an unwed mother. Yeah, especially with 4 kids. So when they were questioned about the boy, 3 of Anna's children were alive. One of them had died in 1955 of electrocution at an amusement park.
That, my friends, is why I don't go to those things.
I keep just imagining it as like a quarter machine outside of a grocery store, and he's like rocking in a quarter machine, and then it just
Like
loses
one
its
of those
shit.
horses.
I know it says amusement park, but that is all I see is like those little rocket ships, and they're just like, that is all I can imagine. I literally could not find anything else about this. There was nothing else. There was no, like, nothing about the amusement. There was nothing. So, anyways,
Imagine how sketchy that would be back then, though, like that amusement park.
yeah, have you seen pictures of like the Easter bunny and shit from back then?
Oh, yeah, I have.
Okay, whatever. So, so this little boy, this child, unfortunately died from the amusement park ride, I guess. And then Bristow, the guy here, theorized that the boy was one of her children that had become too much of a problem, and so they killed him and disposed of him. Especially with her being unwed, they didn't want to admit that they'd done anything or that they were associated with this child. So Bristow then went on to assume that Anna Marie, the stepdaughter, and Arthur were in a sexual relationship. And so it was thought that he may have been the father of this boy, which is another reason they thought that they wouldn't want to be found out. And Arthur refused to take a polygraph test.
No shit. I wonder why.
And yeah, and eventually the mother, his wife, Arthur's wife, Catherine, had died. Eventually, like she was old.
She was old.
No, I'm just saying like nothing like nefarious, like she wasn't poisoned or anything like that.
She was fucking old. Okay.
I need you to really focus on what I'm about to say next because this is more important than that. After Catherine died, Anna's mom, Arthur's wife, after Catherine died, Anna and Arthur got married.
Oh my god. Yuck.
Again, solidifying the theory that
No.
potentially Anna and Arthur had been having some sort of a relationship, and this boy that has been found in this field in this box, which also then, like I said, solidifies the theory that they may have been fucking around. And the child that the one of Anna's that died was maybe his also, and that child may have been the boy in the box. So then when Arthur was selling this foster home, Bristow went to the estate sale that was being held, and he found a bassinet that he believed to be similar to the one that would have been in the box. And he saw blankets that also reminded him of the ones that the boy was wrapped in. Yep. So that's just interesting, huh?
Interesting's not what I would say, but I guess.
So then, so then in 1998, when they exhumed him for DNA testing, Lieutenant Tom Augustine with Viaduct interviewed him again, or interviewed them again, and they agreed to submit their DNA, and it was proven that they were not related to the boy in any way.
Eh.
I know. Imagine sitting there. Imagine sitting there for 45 years or whatever it was, and people just assuming that this is your boy, and it takes 45 years to prove that it's not. Yeah, it's just interesting how they were so close to where he was found. And then they had all of this other stuff happening, and it does seem very convenient, doesn't it? Mm-mm. No, Arthur is a dirtbag either way, but he was not related to the boy. So the Viaduct Society was founded in 1990, in part by Frank Bender in Philadelphia. Um, the this I have it just as VS, like Viaduct Society. I have it VS. Um, provides pro bono. Jesus Christ. No, 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 no. Chelsea, Chelsea, delete that immediately. Chelsea, no. No! God damn it. No.
I will not be taking that out.
Okay. So the so the Viaduct Society, or yeah, Viaduct Society provides pro bono expert assistance in I I said it right that time. Shut up.
It's still funny.
In Okay. Shush. They provide expert assistance to law enforcement agencies across the country as they work to solve cold case homicides. So they work within um different, like, yeah, jurisdictions and different places and whatever to solve cold case, or to help solve cold cases, and they do it pro bono. And they include include um stop. I can see you laughing right now, and I need you to stop right now. They include services
I'm
such as shut up. Volunteer forensic experts and investigators such as profilers, criminologists, forensic scientists, medical examiners, active and retired law enforcement agents, prosecutors, polygraph examiners, and other experts. So they really come in with like the big guns, and they offer it all for free to help trying to solve these cold cases, which I think is just phenomenal, because I think that everybody kind of deserves to have some sort of closure or some
an answer. Yeah, closure, answer, all of it.
yeah. And so Frank Bender, he was one of the guys that had helped to create this society. It was is a forensic artist with a nearly 85% success rate. So when he would draw like the facial reconstructions and stuff, he was nearly 85% like successfully creating that person, which is pretty
It
damn good.
is. I've always wanted to do that for somebody that has passed away.
Like, what they would look like alive, or to yeah, or to the point yeah, 85%, I think, to the point where it would be, like, recognizable for somebody, especially if they're, like, say, decomposing a little bit, or they're not it's been a while and they're you just maybe have the skeleton, like, the skull or something, and so having an 85% success rate is, pretty friggin' impressive to me. But, he theorized that the boy may have been raised as a girl, and so he thought that that may have been the reason that the child's hair was cut right before he died, and then he also thought that that may have been why nobody was recognizing him as a boy in these flyers and stuff. So he thought that the killer may have been trying to hide the child's identity by chopping off the quote girl's long hair off, because if he was raised as a girl and everybody only knew this little kid as a girl with long hair, then a short hair like facial reconstruction would not lead to any results, right? In addition to that, he said that it seemed that the child's eyebrows seemed to have been freshly plucked or sculpted, giving him another reason to think that his theory was correct. So because of this, he drew and released a different sketch of the child as if, quote, she had long hair. So he recreated a second sketch of the same child, but just as if they had been raised as a girl. I think it's a really interesting approach, especially based on like the fact that the hair had freshly been cut, nobody was coming forward, like nobody was recognizing this child, like whatever. I thought it was a really interesting approach. So then in May of 2002, a businesswoman known as M, just M, the letter M, from Cincinnati, Ohio, claimed that her mother had, quote, purchased the boy from his parents in 1954. She claimed that his name was Jonathan, and she said that her mother had regularly abused the boy, and he had been like kept in the basement of their home.
Who admits that?
M, apparently. Because her mother did it. I mean, but if you're a little kid, I don't know. It's pretty easy to tramp some stuff down for a while, I guess. I don't know.
I can tell you right now, if I was like holding a child hostage anywhere, Nolan,
No, this person was not. This person was not.
her mom
This was
was.
the child of the mom. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying
Yeah.
if me, myself, was holding
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Nolan would
Okay.
not go 20 seconds without telling anybody. Homie,
No, he'd be calling the boys on his iPad
he
immediately.
would be because he can't keep a secret.
I'd have to come and fix it. I'd have to come and fix it like
Yeah,
immediately.
he
Yeah, but like if you were like if mom is severely abusing this child, that goes to reason that she was also severely abusing her own children, and so maybe this person was afraid of saying anything, maybe.
or it was one of those situations where mom takes out anger on this child, which means she takes out less of her anger on you.
Yeah, so it could be in like a really physically abusive situation that our children thankfully do not know. I can't imagine it, but I can definitely see that being a possibility, unfortunately. So she also then went on to say that her mother had killed him in February of 1957 by throwing him to the floor and beating him after he vomited after eating baked beans. This theory was all kind of brushed off when she was found that she had a history of mental illness. But, like, honestly, don't we all? Doesn't mean we're not telling the truth sometimes. Yep. Look at us with our, I don't know, dozen between the
It's
two
like,
of us.
if anyone's watching this video and just watches me this entire time, can totally tell. My ass can't sit still.
Let us say we got like a dozen mental illnesses between the both of us. So dozen diagnosed. There's probably more. So I literally have in parentheses, but like, don't we all have a history of mental illness? But the problem is none of her information was able to be corroborated. And additionally, neighbors, friends, family that all had access to this family's home at the time said that it was, quote, impossible and, quote, ridiculous to think that this boy was in the house and none of them saw or heard anything. So I don't know if it's like a big, uh, I don't know, big scheme.
Attention seeking situation.
Probably. So while they did look into M's uh, situation here, or M's quote confession or whatever, they were like, probably not. So then, are you ready for this?
No, probably not.
On November 30th, 2022, 65 years, 9 months, and 13 days after the discovery of this poor baby doll in this fucking park, the Philadelphia Police Department announced that they were finally able to determine the identity of this little boy through investigative genetic genealogy and genetic testing. And they were able to identify him when a cousin uploaded DNA to a public database. Once they found this cousin, they encouraged the cousin's mother to also submit her DNA to give them more confirmation and give them an easier time identifying his actual parents. On December 8th, 2022, they announced that his name was Joseph Augustus Zarelli, and he was born on January 13th, 1953, making him only 4 years old when his body was found. It took more than 65 years, but this beautiful baby finally has a name, which honestly makes me want to cry.
Me too. But where the fuck were the parents?
I have information. So his parents
Okay.
were Mary Elizabeth Betsy, which honestly I think it's kind of funny because she goes by Betsy, but as a nickname for Elizabeth. But like my mom also goes by Betsy as a nickname for Elizabeth, so I thought that was kind of interesting. So Mary Elizabeth Betsy Abel and Augustus J. Gus Zarelli. Gus's niece was the one that had submitted the DNA, so they went on to take more samples from both maternal and paternal sides to ensure that they could find the right people. Once they had a name, they were able to find a birth certificate and go from there. So Betsy had graduated from Merle Dobbins Career and Technical Education High School in 1949. And then Betsy had a daughter in 1950 when she was only like 18 or 19. Reports vary. And she put that daughter up for adoption when right away. So a relative believes that she had also put Joseph up for adoption when he was born. She would have been only 21 when he was born, and she was also unwed. So the relative thinks that there may have been a like Betsy may have given him to like a Catholic adoption agency. Ouch. And had just assumed that he was taken care of with them. So as of current day, it is we are unable to determine whether or not he had actually been adopted or not. But that's why that's why they think she did not come forward, because she had adopted him out. So she didn't realize he was missing or anything had happened.
And I suppose, like, she saw him last when he was just a, little baby.
Like a newborn, yeah.
Yeah, at the age of 4, they don't look the same.
No, and so she didn't even realize that he may have been hers, or he, like, so that's what these relatives are thinking, because these relatives then and the relatives are choosing to remain unnamed in the public, and
No
I
shit.
I completely stand by their decision.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I had their names, I would not report their names, but so this relative says that they believe with like a fair amount of certainty that she got pregnant with a daughter when she was 18 or 19 and put the daughter up for adoption, and then when she was like 21, she also put baby Joseph up for adoption and gave him to the Catholic like agency at the time without telling anybody, because it was her second baby, or it would have been her second baby, and she was still unwed.
Unwed.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so this relative is thinking that that's what happened, and that's why she did not come forward, because she didn't
Okay.
realize that that was hers. Hi, Ollie.
Well, yeah. My little
Yeah, so
squeaky
that's
face.
why they think that she didn't come forward, which makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, like, I couldn't even. Obviously, I know my kid now, but if I saw him as a baby and as a 4-year-old when he was born, there's no way I would be. That's not. No. No.
If you went, yeah, if you, I mean, if you looked at and I'm specifically thinking Maverick, because Maverick was born with a full fucking head of black curly hair, and he is white blonde.
Yeah.
So like, if I saw my child with a head of black curly hair, and then 4 years later he is white blonde in a photo, I would not have been able to
No.
be like, yeah, no, I would never be able to, if I hadn't seen him between A and B. There's no way. That's what this relative is saying. Um, so then, um, Betsy at the time had been working as a cashier at Goldman Theater. There, she met the manager, John J. Plunkett. Her and John were married and they had 4 children, but one had died in childbirth. And I could not find that child's name, but or where the baby was in the birth order, but she went on to have Barbara in 1956, Robert in 1960, and Kathleen in 1962. Betsy's family say they only learned about the investigation 48 hours before the news conference in 2022. And they say there is, quote, no way in the world that Betsy was involved in abusing or killing Joseph. Quote, there was no cruelty, no meanness or cruelty within her heart.
That seems fair though. I mean, like, as a mom, obviously ourselves, I I don't think I have never even spanked Nolan ever. He deserves it, but I can't do it.
Well, no, but I mean, the 50s were a different time, and who knows what goes on behind closed doors. And, like, I think that it just says a lot, though, that her family, who had seen her with her other 3 children, were saying, there is absolutely no fucking way. Like, she was doting on these children, but obviously they didn't see her with her one daughter, the first daughter that she had put up for adoption, and nor had they seen her with Joseph, who she also put up. So they didn't see any of that. But then she had these other 3 children, and they were
When she
like,
was ready to have kids.
yeah, and she was married and whatever. So they were like, absolutely fucking not.
Yeah.
There was no cruelty, no meanness or cruelty within her heart and soul, which I think is just like the most beautiful. Like, there's no cruelty within her heart and soul. I think that is like the highest compliment, honestly. Um, so Betsy died in 1991 at 59 years old after a battle with lung cancer. So unfortunately, girly pop really, yeah. All right. So, as for little Joseph's father, it is unclear if Gus Zarelli even knew that Betsy was pregnant, as they had not been married when Joseph was conceived. Sources state that Joseph was a quote child of a prominent family in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. Gus had a very lucrative real estate and construction business. He married his wife Cynthia, and at his death in 2014 at the age of 87, he had 4 children, 9 grandchildren. His children hired lawyer Dan Bush to help them navigate um, this whole situation now, because like now he's dead and they're just like, the fuck is happening here? They've never heard a word about it. So it's like, well, they've never heard anything about this. And their dad died. Okay, so he died in 2014 and they did this. So 8 years later, these kids have never heard a fucking peep. And all of a sudden, they're being like flooded with all of this. Like, you would get a lawyer.
Well, yeah, because you never know if somebody else is going to be coming behind them.
Oh, god damn. Regardless, if in 2030 somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, we found this 4-year-old boy in a field and your dad is the dad." I'd be like, "No, he's I need to make a phone call." And I would call my fucking lawyer, right? I'd be like, yeah, I would.
You would call Patrick, me,
I would imagine he would be in the room with me.
there,
Patrick would be in
there.
the room
But
with
then
me.
you'd call me, and then you'd call a lawyer.
I would send you a real quick text being like, SOS, shit hit the fan. And then I'll be like, I will talk to you in a minute because I
That's
have to
fair.
make a
Yeah,
phone
that's
call.
more
And,
like
fuck.
I
And
don't
I
even
would
know
call
what
my
to say
lawyer.
if that happened, because I'd be like, yeah, that probably adds up a little bit.
I'm calling a lawyer. Either way, so poor Gus's children, honestly, and I feel for his children because now they're just being like blindsided by this fucking thing, right?
And they just got over everything with their dad passing away too. Not really over, but you know what I'm saying?
Honestly, though, no, but they're like everything is kind of finally starting to fall back into place. And I mean, it's been nearly 2 years since my dad died, and I can tell you that we're still not fully settled. So it it makes sense. It would make sense to, yeah, it takes a while to like fully kind of settle down and go back to, oh, okay, and then to get to the point where you're finally like everything is normal again, and then to just be punched in the face with, hey, your dad actually had this baby and we found him in 1956 and it's actually your brother, and we just found out like 4 days ago. So
I'm like, God damn it, Dad, why?
how, I don't even know I don't even know how you would go about processing that as one of his children or whatever. So they hired lawyer Dan Bush to help them navigate everything, and it does not seem like they knew anything about Joseph existing at all. So it doesn't sound like, if Gus did know that Joseph existed, he did not tell them anything. That there's nothing that makes me believe, that I had read, that makes me believe that his children knew that this child existed.
Well, I don't think he knew either.
Well, that's kind of what I like. It does, yeah, kind of make me believe that it it really truly seems like they were completely blindsided by this. And it feels like if he did know, they may have had some sort of like, even if they didn't know, they'd be like, oh, well, my dad was always kind of secretive about this or didn't want to talk about, you know what I mean? But no, from all I can tell, absolutely nothing. They were fully blindsided. So Bush has said, their lawyer has said that Zarelli's children are, quote, extraordinarily sympathetic to the death of this young boy and are horrified by the events that are being discussed, end quote. He also stated that, quote, there has been no credible allegation by anyone, including the Philadelphia Police Department, that their father knew of the birth of this child or had anything to do with the life of this child, and certainly nothing even remotely suggesting that he knew of or had anything to do with the harm having come to this child. End quote. Which I believe.
I do too. I He
Hmm.
came from a wealthy family, so I kind of feel like they had a little bit of fun, and she didn't want to be with him. He didn't want to be with her, and she knew that. So then she was just like, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna, yeah, I'm just gonna carry this child, not tell him.
Might as well
Yeah,
not tell him.
because I don't want to be with him. So
Yep.
why would I tell him?
Yep.
Because then he's gonna have to be with me, and then we're gonna have to get married, and that's just gonna be the end of it.
And it's just a whole thing, and I'm just going to be miserable, and we're just not going to do that. Put the baby up for adoption. Bing, bing, boom. Done, done, done. Yep. On January 13th, 2023, the day that would have been Joseph Augustus Zarelli's 70th birthday, a new memorial with his full name and image was set up, including adding his name to the memorial that had previously been there. So he got an actual stone now that says his name on it.
You didn't take the other ones away though, did they?
No, they added his name.
Good, because that dude deserves all the stones, all of them. He can have mine when I die.
I know. The most recent article I could find was March 3rd of 2023, so a little bit over a year ago. Um, no killer, no motive or anything has yet to be identified, but now having his name, they are keeping the case opened. And they are working to find out what happened to the boy in the box in 1957.
Obviously, it was whoever the fuck adopted him.
Right?
They're probably dead already, but just whatever. In my head, I'm gonna beat them
Oh,
up.
I'm sure they are. I mean, I guess they could be in like their 90s or something, but yeah.
You know what? I really hope whoever did it, like, lived a long, painful, shitty ass life.
I hope they like stubbed their pinky toe every single day. Ooh, or when you wash dishes and you touch like the soggy wet food at the bottom of the sink and you want to die a little bit. I hope their life was just that soggy wet food at the bottom of the sink.
Ah, no.
That's what I hope their life was.
Or, or ankle to scooter.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Paper cuts and hand sanitizer.
Stop.
Got it.
Mm-mm.
Got it. Yeah! I'm better at this game than you are.
Okay, hold on. Let me think.
Either way, all of these options, good options, and whoever did this horrible, horrible thing to sweet baby Joseph, they can just deal with that every single day for the rest of eternity for all I'm aware, like for all I care. And that is my story.
And that was.
Why I need a goddamn minute.
Anyway, that is our episode for the day. We hope everybody enjoyed every second of that because there was a whole lot of ADHD going on.
There was a lot of ADHD going on. And next week, I intend to bring you, I promised Chelsea, a spooky story for this week, and then I just didn't get time. So I will be bringing us a spooky haunted story for next week, and not an unsolved case, because I've given Chelsea, I think, too many unsolved cases.
And I can't handle unsolved finished things.